Now we got Lieutenant Briggs in the building. He's like, Dad, I want to be in a fucking video again. I was like, all right, Briggs, let's do it then. Now, if I were to ask you, would you want to know what two factors or variables will influence most the effect that an exercise has on a muscle or a group of muscles? Would you be like, yeah, you know what? That sounds like pretty valuable information. I should probably know that. Or would you be like, you know what? I kind of like the fact that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I do everything without any fucking rhyme or reason at all. But I do hope for the best. Because hope is the strategy that I've chosen to employ. Well, if that's the case, turn the fucking video off. I got nothing for you. But if you do want to know, I'll tell you. And the reason you want to know this is very, very simple. Because if you know what effect an exercise has on a muscle, you can better decide for yourself what other exercises you need to include in your strategy to maximize your return on investment of time and effort, at least as it relates to building muscle. So, the first thing is, if you want to build the most amount of muscle through your efforts, what do you got to do? You got to recruit and fatigue as many muscle fibers as possible throughout a muscle's entirety without overworking your body's capacity to recover. Now, while that might sound all well and good, the next question becomes, how the fuck do you do that? Well, you got to pick the right exercises for the job. Remember, an exercise is a tool that we use to load the muscles. So you got to pick the right tools. And you have to have an idea of what effect that tool is going to have on your body so you can best decide or determine what other tools are going to need to be included into the strategy. So the two factors that will influence most the effect that an exercise has on a muscle or group of muscles is, number one, the movement itself. You need to understand biomechanics. I'll teach it to you in like 10 seconds. It's fucking simple. And number two, you need to understand how muscles operate. I'll teach that to you in 10 seconds. It's fucking simple. Now, the way muscles operate is that their capacity to produce force is at its highest when they're at or near their mid-range. When you veer away from the mid-range, your capacity to produce force declines. Your muscles are at their weakest, or their capacity to produce force is at its lowest, when they're in their longest and shortest positions. So if you're unsure of what those positions are, look at an anatomy chart, pick any fucking muscle on the body, look at where it starts, look at where it finishes, then try to position yourself in such a way that you drag those 2 points as far away from each other as possible. That's the fully lengthened position. Now position yourself in such a way where you bring those 2 points as close together as possible. It's the fully shortened position. The capacity to produce force is going to be greatest when you're in the middle of that range of what that muscle is responsible for. Now, biomechanics, the universal law of levers, you got two variables you need to understand. You got the lever, which is your bone or bones. Your muscles pull on your bones to promote movement. And then you got the direction of resistance, which is very easy to understand. Anytime you're lifting a weight or doing an exercise, whether it's a free weight or a cable or a machine, do the movement and let go of the weight. Whatever direction it goes is the direction of resistance. If I let go of Briggs, because I say, you know what, Briggs, your 15 seconds of fame is up. You're done in this video. And I drop him, which way is he going to go? He's going to go down because of the direction of resistance. Now, I would never do that. So anybody, animal cruelty and all that shit, that would never ever fucking happen. It's just to illustrate a point. If I'm holding a cable and the cable's above my head and I pull the weight this way and I let it go, boom, it goes that way. That's the direction of resistance. So anytime the lever, the bone, is perpendicular to the direction of resistance, the lever's in a fully active position. Therefore, the muscles acting on that lever have to do the most amount of work to overcome the resistance to produce movement. So, how do these two factors play into each other? Let's use a preacher curl as an example. So with the preacher curl, what's happening is your arms are resting on a pad, so your elbow is 45 degrees in front of your body, and it doesn't matter what side of the preacher curl you're on, your arms are going to be 45 degrees in front of your body. The only difference is, due to biomechanics, the muscles are going to be overloaded at different relative lengths. On one side of the preacher bench, you're going to overload the biceps in their more lengthened position at the elbow joint. And on the other side of the preacher curl, you're going to overload the biceps in their more shortened relative position at the elbow joint. So what looks like the same exercise will have a completely different effect on the muscles involved. So you need to understand biomechanics and the way muscles operate to have an idea of the effect that any exercise is going to have on your muscles. When you do this, when you have this understanding, you are empowered with the ability to select whatever the fuck you want to do in the gym and promote a maximal growth response. Because if you want to recruit and fatigue as many muscle fibers as possible throughout a muscle's entirety, you're going to want to overload that muscle in its longest, shortest, and mid-range positions. So you need to understand the effect that those two variables have on one another. Now there's other variables as well that will influence how much force needs to be produced, like center of gravity over base of support, but that doesn't apply to every single exercise. As long as you understand the effect that these two variables have, the movement, biomechanics, and how muscles operate, you can look at any exercise in the gym and say, okay, that exercise must overload that muscle at that relative length. Therefore, to promote maximal growth, the strategy must include exercises that overload that same muscle at different relative lengths. So that's something I wanted to share because a lot of people don't know this stuff, or it's never been presented to them in this way. And they might think they know the answer, but they can't really explain why. This is why. If you understand those two variables, which is very fucking simple, you have the free will to do whatever the fuck you want in the gym and promote a maximal response, as long as you include exercises that overload the muscle throughout its entirety. So you like this information, feel free to share. Click the fucking button at the bottom. Subscribe to the channel. I'll keep bringing you the best. And this guy needs to get some sleep.